Hello, friends. Welcome back to another edition of the PCS Podcast, the Pokemon podcast built by the community for the community. I'm one of your co-hosts, Aaron, and back with me this week, I'm joined once again by Michael, who I'm sure you're elated for the Georgia SEC Championship win,
Oh
but
yeah.
we'll get to you in just 1 second. We are missing Drew. He had a family issue arise, and he's unable to be with us this evening. Everything's okay with him. Just an immediate family member. Basically, one of his nephews is dealing with some issues, so we're hoping nothing but the best and a speedy recovery for the little guy. On today's episode, we're going to cover the Perth Regional and the Bogota Special Event results, our top 5 favorite decks from 2024, and a look into what we would play in Toronto this weekend. Michael, I'm glad to have you back because one, we can have video again. How things been for you? Hopefully everything with the dentist turned out okay. But
Yep.
obviously, talk about that. Talk about where you've been at the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Good to be back. It feels like it's been a while. Speaking Georgia football, the Georgia Bulldogs are your 2024 Southeastern Conference champions. Feels good to have that back. I know a lot of the seniors, they came back to win an SEC championship too. So pretty awesome. If you are watching the video, we are back on video. Sorry for my background being a little discombobulated. I don't know if you caught this, but I have a light behind me. I have two, and they're usually awesome, but this is the second time since I've had one of these lights where it just died the other day, and because the holidays, I'm like, well, I don't want to buy a new one for myself right now. I'll wait till after the holidays. So one light is off,
Right.
one light is on. I do realize that's the case, but yeah. So if you're on video, sorry for that. But no, back to Georgia. It feels awesome. The last 2 weeks have been wild, to say the least, with 8 overtime against Georgia Tech 2 weeks ago, and that was a complete just gut wrenching experience, but awesome to watch. And then of course, winning the SEC championship is always massive. So feels good. To be honest with you, this is like the best case scenario for Georgia. I know this isn't a college football podcast, but Georgia has, I admit it, after the long season that we've had of the number one strength of schedule, it feels pretty good to have a pretty clear cut run to the national championship. So, unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to go to Cincinnati this year because I will be in San Francisco for work, and my flight leaves on the 20th, and the national championship is here on the East Coast on the 20th. So I'm a little bummed for that. I've not missed a national championship in the Kirby Smart era, so kind of stinks there. But outside of that, life's been good. Life's been busy, of course, with the holidays, kids being sick, me being sick, having tooth issues, stuff like that. We had layoffs at work last week, so that kind of sucked. So yes, last Monday just was rough between the dentist appointment and layoffs at work. So
Yeah.
I was not in a good spot. So thanks for holding down the fort with Drew last week. But with everything going on, I'm doing all I can to keep up with the meta, man. But to be honest with you, it's been really tough just simply for the fact that life is moving at 99 miles an hour, it feels like. And then this Friday, me and the wife are traveling to New York City. Every year, my work does holiday parties. I'm technically based out of the New York office, and so I get to go to New York City every year at the holidays, which is awesome. I love seeing the
Oh,
Christmas
cool.
lights and everything. And so this year, it's just me and Caitlin going, which is really exciting. We haven't had really just like a us trip like this in quite a while since Hayden was born. So we're really looking forward to that. Doing the typical New York Christmas time things. I'm going to try to get to see some, a show or two on Broadway and have some good food while we're out there. So, and maybe even see some snow. I think it's supposed to snow on Sunday before we come home. So that'll be cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. So always good to go. I love New York City, especially at Christmas time. So it's, who knows? Maybe that'll be a place where regionals is at next year because I think it's a fantastic spot. Or maybe Worlds. Who knows?
Who
Who
knows?
knows? But yeah, man, that's my life. It's been crazy. How about yours? I know it's equally probably as crazy with the baby just days
Yeah.
away, essentially.
Well, yeah, we'll have to talk about that off air because how you did the age difference and just, I know one of my closest friends, they had one with, about 18 months apart. So it kind of was like one was still kind of a baby ish, before really getting to that toddler. But I know yours are very similar because are they about 3 years apart as
Oh
well,
no,
too?
we've got a 5 year gap, which
5 years. So even
honestly
more.
I
Okay.
prefer to be on. Well, I never experienced it any other way, but a
Yeah.
5 year gap feels awesome.
Yeah, that seems like the 5-year-old will be a lot more independent. So ours will be 3 months, but he's three and a half next month,
Yeah.
towards the very end of January. But
Mhm.
yeah, so any Pokedads out there that have a 3-year gap between their, basically their firstborn or something like that, and then their second kid, please reach out for DMs. I will take anything. I'm sure it's a lot like figuring out how to ride a bike, take out the training rules, and kind of just get into those routines. But
Yeah.
it's one of those where I woke up actually today, like walking to work, and I was like, oh, it's actually pretty real because we're just about 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
Thursday will be so when people listen to this, basically just a little over 2 weeks away, and it's probably one of those longest, quickest 2 weeks, that you can see. Just sometimes it feels like hours just drag on, and then other times it's like, wait, it's already Friday. So obviously did a lot of like a bunch of um, baby gathering, washing of parts and everything of that. 1,000 bottles, getting everything ready. We're going to carpet clean the vacuums this Saturday morning, just kind of trying to get those last things in, because then the next 3 months or 4 months, it's just the house becomes a little bit of a whirlwind. You never know, but I have been good. I've avoided the normal like fall, early winter sickness that I usually
That's
get.
a
I
win.
had Yeah, I had one issue like early, but it was kind of like a 24-hour fever type of thing where like I woke up, went into work, and was able to like stay in. But that was all the way back in. That would have been that was just before Louisville Regional, so October. I remember that because I did not know if I'd be able to get on the flight because
That's
I
right.
physically couldn't get out of bed because of the fever, but I was able to break that. But we had an impromptu PCS like hangout Friday morning. I was kind of just thinking, I was like, well, it looks like I might have some time to actually get on the computer and play live, which I hadn't played at all. So I just chatted in the Discord. If anyone was interested, I'll just host a tournament, and it's free to play, join in, and hang out. It's myself, and we had a few other members. So thank you, Carlos, Oscar, Josh, and Aiden for playing. That was a lot of fun. I ended up making the right meta call. I could tell I was very rusty. I played Gouging Fire. There's quite
All
a few
right.
golden goes.
Yeah.
Um, golden goals that were played, and I liked it. It's just I'd never played the deck and only just constantly been theorizing it, and so I could tell if never playing it. There's times where like I ultra balled away Luminiac, so like I won't need that, and then I realized like the very next turn I'm like, oh, I don't have a supporter and no way to get to a supporter unless I top deck something, so that was really stupid of me. So it was fun. We had a good time just all hanging out, going through. Carlos took the dub. Golden Go. Obviously, we see if you can get a good setup, it is. You're just drawing so many cards, and Gouging Fire does not play an interruption card. So,
Nope.
had a lot of fun. I was disappointed with just some of the plays, so I ended up actually playing about 10 games on TCG Live over the weekend just to make sure that I'm not wash, and went a lot smoother after that. But played Pulp Thorns is primarily what I played, in some Ancient Box and Guardy were the three decks that I played, and did better than that. My Pokemon Black update, I didn't get to do that as much. Was doing a little more work behind the scene of things for this podcast and then the house. But I did complete Dragonspire Tower, and I'll let everyone know. N gets Zekrom, which then it was prompted of I need to go find Reshiram, and then I assume I'd be able to hopefully capture that. So my team have had a few evolutions. I did a lot of like level grinding just because I was getting a little bit nervous of what's coming, having never played. So I have Superior, Boulder, Semi-Poor, Sigilif still. My Tynamo is now an electric, and then Darmanitan, which did evolve.
Nice.
So enjoying that. Hopefully, I'll get a little bit more time this week, but I'll probably pack the DS in the hospital bag, and who knows if I'll get any time to actually play it or not. We'll see. For all those other fathers out there, you just never know how the labor, how long it's gonna go, all that sort of fun stuff. So you just kind of keep your head on a swivel. But I'm glad to have you back. I tried to figure out the video with Drew last week, and we just had a little session, training session, so I could try to figure that out. But I do appreciate everyone still, following the podcast. I know it's been a little bit inconsistent with the video streams lately, but again, you can always count on at least the auto, no matter what, which I think is the vast majority of our listens.
Yeah.
But we did have a few tournaments this weekend, Michael. We did have an official regional, but down in Australia, and we had a special event in Colombia. So we did want to talk about the Perth regional in Australia. I did see Rahul was there.
I know. I saw that. I didn't realize he was there.
Yeah, I don't recall seeing too many other, like obviously
I think Gabe
Kato
Smart
won.
was
Yeah.
there. Yeah, Gabe was
Okay.
there.
And then Okay, so there's a few United States flags on
Mm-hmm.
the limitless list. So, but again, being in Australia in December, and that would be their coming summer, so
Yeah,
can't be unfortunate by any means
I know,
with
right?
that. Uh, and so we had Gardevoir return to the winner's circle. We haven't talked about Gardevoir really extensively since Baltimore. We did have Kato, who travels quite a bit and plays, and
Yeah,
I need to go find his YouTube channel because he interviewed me before NAIC.
oh,
Um,
that's cool.
I didn't even recognize him, right? Like I'd heard the name from other podcasts, and then NAIC asked, if you could interview me, and he asked 4 or 5 questions type of stuff, and I just answered them the best I could. No idea. And then when I was rewatching it, right, because I was playing in the event and I was playing the not the challenge, but just I know it was a challenge, I think, or whatever it was to get more prize packs. I when I was rewatching it at the airport and I saw he was on the stream, as they're getting closer to the top 8, I'm like, wait a second, I talked to that guy before the tournament. That's pretty cool, because he said Gardevoir, because I asked him what,
Right.
what he's playing, and he's like, Gardevoir feels really good. So
That's awesome.
he, if you want to bring up his deck list, I don't think it's the carbon copy. Um, Henry Chow's list. That
No.
that is obviously still very very goated, but this goes back. Probably the number one thing here is your normal 4-4-2 Gardevoir line. He did bring back the double Monkey Dory,
Yep.
which
Makes a lot
we'll
of
talk to.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And then of course your main attackers with Drifloon and Screamtail. He did have the Flutter main, to also do a little bit of damage, as well too. Klefki, which is a good start, and then I kind of like this because he brought back the Tatsugiri, which I
Yeah.
still just think is such a good card. It's Pokegear almost minus
Yep.
1 card, but again you can pivot it. And then Manaphy, obviously, so actually trying to protect his bench, and then the 4 Arven, 4 Iono, 1 Boss, 1 Turo. Um, the cool thing here is we'll jump to the other, but he ran 7 Psychic, which usually seems to be like the magic number for these,
Yeah.
but then 3 Dark.
Yep.
Some lists even were getting down to possibly only 1 Dark.
Just the one.
Uh, Chow's was doing 2. I'm pretty sure it was 7 and a 2 split. But with here, obviously this is kind of the slower NAIC Gardevoir list is what it reminds me of. You just have a few new techs in there. So 2 Earthen Vessel. I wish I could, in Gardevoir, I always wish I could play 3 because it's so good. Because one, you want to discard it, but no Radiant Greninja in here. He avoided that at all. The only blue guy he has is Manaphy. And then he added 2 Night Stretcher, which feels really good. And then your 1 Super Rod, and then this is the Unfair Stamp. So
Right.
this is his A spec. He's trying to obviously cause as much disruption with the Ionos, and then your double TM Evo, because in case you do start it, it's very good because then your Arvin can get a different tool like a Bravery Charm for a follow up attack, and then 2 Artisan as the only stadiums. And if you're listening to this and maybe it's the first time, yes, Gardevoir runs for Buddy Buddy Puffin because you're trying to set up as wide as possible. I did see last week the um, tournament before, there was a Gardevoir with the trolley build,
Yeah.
which was kind of cool as well too. So trolley seems like to be stonks are going up in that. So if you didn't pull one, it's still probably relatively cheap, but probably get your hands on it before it kind of becomes a 4 seal stone, or out of nowhere it's $15.
Right.
What are you looking at here for the Gardevoir list from Kato?
I mean, well, first off, you know it. I hate Gardevoir. It's like my arch nemesis of decks. I mean, I've played it, I've tried it. It's good. I get it. I just hate Guardy. But that said, game recognizes game. I understand that this is a fantastic deck. This made a really good, like you said, it was a really good meta call for the weekend as well. Especially with the chaos of Klawf running around, which is wild to me that we're in a meta where Klawf is extremely meta relevant. But having Monkey Dory just it makes absolute sense to me to add in a second Monkey Dory there.
Yeah.
You're just basically retroactively taking off the damage that's being put on via poison and just handing it right back to them. And then being able to, with you made the call, the 3rd Dark Energy, to be able to attack with it as well, to do Mind Bend. Like, it's just incredibly clutch to be able to go that route. Yeah, and then the Tatsugiri is really cool. I still don't know. I mean, I don't know. The lack of Greninja, maybe I'm old school, but we're gonna have to be used to it anyways. But not having Greninja kind of feels weird. But having Tatsuguri kind of reminds me of the old school Gardevoir list back when it was playing Luminion too, because you were able to
Yep.
get a supporter that way. So obviously it doesn't work the same way. But having the ability to dig for that Arven, or if you want to get the Iona to mess someone up, or you really need that Turo, just having that ability to go and grab it without the risk of a two prizer like Luminion is actually pretty smart. So obviously Keto knows this deck very, very well, has been piloting Guardy for quite some time. So I think this was a really
quite a few
solid list.
results in all regions for
Yeah.
him, featuring Gardevoir. Japan, United
Mhm.
States, obviously, as NICs I talked about, and then now obviously in Australia.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
I There wasn't a stream, but I wish we could have watched, because the only thing that I in any Tatsugiri type of line is being able to have the rescue board to do a free retreat.
Yeah.
And so I suppose most of the time you're okay with putting damage counter via the Gardevoir EX ability, because you're just going to go in through. So, but like I was just like, the only thing that I could see possibly stutter is you constantly having to hand attach to Tatsugiri to get it out of the active. You do play a one of Turo scenario, but there is no pal pad.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I
I
don't think
wonder
that's
if it's more of like he thinks of, if this is my starting, like, if this is your basic that you have when you shuffle and you draw 7 type of thing to get ready for setup. It's like that's an ideal start,
yeah.
minus Klefki, like either or. But then it's like, well, are you using it during mid game very very much? I suppose it just, the answer is always depends.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's situational, but I do think like one, I'm not so concerned about discarding an energy to attach because you get it right back with Psychic Embrace too. So like it's just yet another way to put energy in the discard if you do start it or need to get it out. I think it's also like a lot of Pokemon tend to be. Sometimes it's a sacrificial Pokemon too. It activates Counter Catcher. Like, okay, cool. You can't kill what's on the bench. Kill my Tatsuguri. Then my Counter Catcher's active. Like, cool.
Right.
All right. It doesn't really hurt me that bad. And it was a one prizer. So, um, no, I think it's valid concerns because it's not as easy to move if you don't have the rescue board, like you said. But, uh, worst case scenario, it gets KO'd and then Guardy just gets stronger. And on top of that, you have an energy in the discard pile too. So, and then I
Right.
guess you're not so concerned about attaching from hand for turn because you psychic embrace anyway. So you're not, you're able to get the energy you need onto the Pokemon to attack. So, not as detrimental in my mind. But
Yeah, and Guardi EX, you're just almost never really attacking with that, because this is more of like the come from behind type of Gardevoir.
yeah, yeah,
Whereas I know in the finals in Baltimore versus Kieran that Henry, did attack with Gardevoir pretty often. And actually, when you watch that just whole stream VOD in itself, not only the finals, he actually did throw Gardevoir up early, because it's like,
mm-hmm.
and that's where I was thinking like the hand attach goes well, because then you only have to put 4 damage counters on it. Which
Sure,
then again, if depending if you have Monkey Dory with the darkness energy go through.
yeah,
But you didn't mention it because I had put in our notes. This was a really really good meta call with base where we're coming out of Stuttgart, Germany
yeah,
results, and Sacramento, and we see the rise in Klawf Terapagos. It was an all Japanese final. The second place list here for Hero. Uh, Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly. But we did see Klawf's domination continue to go, and it's getting into
yep.
top players' hands. Klawf is tier 1. It is in there.
It's
It is
crazy.
wild. It is wild. I know, and probably if you're listening to this, you probably found the Lake Rage podcast, which go give Kevin some support as well too. He does a lovely job. But he had on kind of one of the originators of Class Terapagos. Literally, they had that, and it was, and I don't know if he just had the hindsight of talking to someone from Sacramento, but that was like just when Stuttgart, Germany went wild with Klawf. So it was like the
Yeah,
perfect release. So I'm sure he got a good, lovely bump in the listens. But you play a 2 Klawf, a 2 Terapagos EX, and a 2 Brute Bonnet, and then just tons of one ofs. This is what Drew and I touched on a little bit last week. So the coolest, like, it's just playing some really cool Pokemon that you don't always get to see. So the Rangaroo V, came out in Astral Radiance, probably was a very much, as you can see within the pricing, a very, very bulk card.
Mhm.
In theory, it's only gone up like maybe by $1, so it's still probably $1.50 or $2 at your local LGS. Um, but right now it's cool because if it's in the active, you can get 2 tools each time. You can only do this once, of course, but you're able to get the 4 seal stone and then something else, and then you can 4 seal stone to get another piece. And in the interview, he talked about how easy it is to donk people. I know, was it Rahul? I think it was just someone else on Twitter that I saw. I wish I would have bookmarked it. But they said out of their rounds here, they had 7 times where they were able to donk their appointment in a game, not obviously double
Right,
donk
right.
to win. That would be even cooler. Talk about being able to lay low and just go hang out and not have to
Yes,
play.
yes.
But it's wild. You do something that obviously we don't get to talk about very much, which is special conditions. Poison, right?
Yep.
That's the name of the game. You play a bundle. He did include the Genesect from Shrouded Fable,
Which is
um,
brilliant, by the way.
which is brilliant. Yeah, so if people haven't heard, it's Genesect. It's 110 steel basic Pokemon. Only 1 retreat cost, so a little bit nicer than the old Genesect V that we had. But it has an ability which is cool, Ace Nullifier. You can guess what this happens. It says if this Pokemon has a tool attached, your opponent can't play any Ace spec from their cards. Now, this I don't believe the gentleman Richard, can't remember his last name, Yanow I think might have been it, that played in Sacramento. He did not have the Genesect, but Robin Schultz, which is a former World's champ, he played this, and a lot of people that were talking about it said it completely makes sense. You have
Yeah.
so many tools, which we'll go over the tools just in a second. You have so many tools in this, and you're playing the 4 Area Zero Underdepth, so you're trying to you got quite a bit of bench space. Some other decks still play the Area Zero, but obviously, depending if they discarded their ace spec because they can't play, but shutting down prime catcher, shutting down unfair stamp, secret box, all these things like it's just a cool
Yeah.
effect. And we even talked about some of the other one ofs. Before we jump to the trainers, is there something here for the Pokemon line? Plays 18 Pokemon. Again, 2 Klawf, 2 Tropico CX, 2 Proof Bonnets, and then just a slew of one ofs. The coolest one being the Petrant promo card from Shrouded
Yeah.
Fable, where it has. I read it last, but if it
5
comes into the
damage.
active spots, you can put 5 damage counters on your opponent's poison Pokemon during Pokemon checkup. And the cool thing is here is you play the Radiant Sneasler, so that's how you get the dunks.
Yep.
So you could do this going first, even because you're not attacking, you're just
Right.
using the abilities of your Pokemon.
Yep.
And if they start a Charmander and they don't bench something else, that's how a lot of people can get donks.
Yeah.
So what's your kind of coolest one of Pokemon that you like and support there that maybe I haven't or have read?
No, yeah, I think the two are the Petrant and the Genesect both make so much sense in this deck. Petrant, just I remember I played it at it was a League Cup earlier on. This is back when it was like the quad Petrant deck. I can't remember what it was. It was a very early iteration of this. Obviously, Trapicos wasn't even around then.
Mm-hmm.
But that Petrant is just so broken, adding the 5 extra damage counters. And it doesn't even have to, like, I know you had mentioned coming into the active, but it can just, it's as long as it's in the active.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah,
Yes.
as long
Yeah,
as
you're
this
bringing it
Pokemon
into the active. Yeah, you're bringing in the active either with like a
with the
retreat with
Petrant
Latias
or
or
the
the
Petrant
Petra
EX.
EX.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
makes sense.
So, yep, as long as it's in the active, you add the 5 damage counters to your opponent's poisoned Pokemon during the checkup, too. So, I don't know. I mean, just the synergy between everything in this deck, it's just so mind blowing to me. Being able to poison with the Brute Bonnet, then being able to shift around the poison damage and do it's crazy. And obviously, Charizard's back, so you can Oko Charizard. You've got super. Well, don't want to jump ahead, but you've got some cool tool cards in there too to make it even stronger. And then it doesn't get the same love as it used to because back in the day, this was Klawf Electrode. You still do have the Hisuian Electrode V there for the grass weakness to hit onto some of the dark Pokemon that are out there in the meta. So just a great deck. I think this is such a fun deck. It's such a cool deck, and it makes complete sense, but it doesn't at the same time that it's tier 1. Who'd have ever thought that a Klawf deck would ever be as meta relevant as it is, that people are teching specifically for it? Mind
in
blowing.
Justin Basil's meta, like kind of meta results
Uh-huh.
that we usually talk about most times during the podcast.
Yeah.
Zard EX was 1, and then Klawf was number 2,
Yep.
and it's just wow, and in theory, relatively all within the span of about, I think there was 4 weeks, as we did have a bye week there. Um, so yes, Sacramento is kind of where it first outbroke. Then that immediate next week, Germany, because we saw Maridon. We saw Maridon go up to like 8% on day 1, and it was almost nowhere to be seen in day 2. And then, but that's where your Klawfy your Klawf deck was one of the top. It was the top. No, it was second after Reggie Drago. It was the second most played in day 2 in Germany, and obviously has continued on that trend. I know a lot of top players have picked it up, and we'll get into the reason why here. So I did already talk. So you only played the 4 double turbo energy. I don't know if this means Reggie Drago would bring Noivern EX back, but I suppose it depends. The matchup seems pretty 50-50. I'm sure the Klawf players will say they have an advantage, and the Drago say that they have an advantage. I suppose just always depends on who's the pilot and what's the setup look like. But you run a 3 Arvin, 3 Boss, right? Because you're trying to get rid of those threats, because you can hit big numbers, which we'll get into. A 1 Research, a 1 Carmine, which is cool. I guess that little bit extra dig to go through, because you do play a Squawkabilly EX, because, right, you're trying to get your combo pieces going. And then they do at least play a 1 Disruption with 1 Iono. 4 Nest Ball, because that's obviously your primary setup that you're trying to do. 3 Night Stretcher, 2 Ultra Ball, 2 Hisuian Heavy Ball, because you're only playing all basics, everyone. 2 Switch Cards, which I love. I still love that card. That's going to rip when that rotates. Yep. 2 of them cost $3.18. Wow. Sorry, I'm just looking at the pieces here. I was going to say this is a cheap deck, but then when you kind of go look at it, you're like, no, you can see why there's a few cards that spike the price up.
Yeah, seriously.
And then the ace spec at the moment, I just looked at this not too long ago, and Precious Trolley has already gone up to over $5. So again, if you haven't got your copy, I'm trying to remember if I ordered that relatively late. I might have to go look in my pile on my bar top to see if it's sitting there. I hope so. If not, I'll just wait a few months towards April, May, when maybe it's not as expensive. But that is your A spec. So you can, that says bench as many Pokemon as you want on your bench. So if you have the Air Zero Underdefs and you have your Tropicos EX in play, you can get 7 bench Pokemon to fill out depending on your setup. So a cool A spec. I just continue to see the stonks go up into that. So we'll see if it comes out in a league battle deck anytime soon in the next 4 to 5 months. They do play a 1 of Energy Lotto, just because there is no guaranteed way outside of the 4 Sealstone to get a double turbo. So makes sense. Energy Lotto also rotates. And then here we go into all the tools. So there's going to be quite a few of them here. I count 12. Wow. Excuse me, I can't count. 9. 3 Ancient Booster Energy Capsules. That is because, as Michael and I discussed, you played the Brute Bonnet from Paradox Rift. That if it has a Ancient Booster Capsule attached to it, you can make both active Pokemon poisoned. This helps, just as again is all about it being able to hit bigger numbers. So play 3 of those. You play 3 Binding Mochi from the Shrouded Fable. Attacks used by this Pokemon this card is attached to do 40 more damage. So we're starting to get higher numbers here, Michael. You do play 2/4 Sealstone, which I did not know that's where they were settled at, but I suppose it's such a key for your setup or your combos that if you prize it, there's just no way to get it out of your prize cards. And then, as you mentioned, everyone's favorite Hisuian Electro V that can attack for no energy attachments. If you play a super effective glasses and you poison your Hisuian Electrode V in the active with your Brute Bonnet, you're hitting 200 damage, and 200 times 2 for weakness takes out a Charizard DX, because they do not play Hero's Cape, even though that aspect seems like it might be coming back sometimes. So an absolutely cool deck. And again, this one's a little bit different. So we see it also got a 4th place finish that helped, and then you actually don't really see it. Boy, I continue to scroll. 47th place is the next.
I'm seeing a 30th place.
Did I scroll? Yep, I scrolled right past it.
Samir got that one, 30th.
Yep, so So it didn't do as predominantly heavy damage or result oriented as Germany, but again, it is the hot deck at the moment.
Yeah.
The only other, the Regidragos, we won't bring them up, but it's typical Regidrago. It just seems like the Eloan Executor, or yeah, the Eloan Executor
Deal
EX
Executor.
seems to be finding a way into most of the decks, where you can flip a coin and knock out either, depending on the results, if it's heads, you knock out your opponent's basic Pokemon in the active, or if it's a tails, you can knock out a bench. So it actually gets around Mimikyu. Depending again of what you flipped, right? You want the opposite of wherever Mimikyu's at, because that would stop that as well too. Um, and then for the most part, typical Regidrago, it's still, to me, I think it's kind of become the hunted now. So I feel like it still is getting results and loads of money. It's just probably not that BDIF where it, you know, needs 50% of the
It
meta.
looks like, I didn't realize this, but it does look like it won first place for seniors in Perth, though. This exact
Okay.
list. So
And it won seniors. I'm trying to remember if it was seniors in Germany or Sacramento as well too. So still getting results,
still,
or still getting top cuts, still getting some dubs out there, which we'll talk about the SBZ here in just a second. But the other one that I wanted to talk about, what Drew and I talked about it a lot as well too, is your Polted Thorns. Same exact deck as Mads Jensen, I believe. Yes, it is, because I just saw the link that you brought up. It's just cool. Not a lot of decks play for Crispin. Crispin isn't played in a lot of decks, actually. So being able to get both of those, this is one of the decks that I played in my over the weekend, and this felt really good, because your Iron Thorns just slows things down. You're able to, if you get the trolley off, you're able to double TM Evo, and if you have a Dracoloak in your hand already, you have 3 of those, and then you're just starting to go through. And again, the reason why I love this deck is it plays the slime
mold
Pokemon.
colony.
Yeah, yep, exactly, for the Toedscruel. And the thing I like about Toedscruel is also it's 120 HP. So that is a little bit helpful if you're facing off against a Drago using Kyurem. But it's just cool. There's basically, if you just look at the top stadiums in play now, is Area Zero Underdevs, and then a lot of things still use the Pokestop engine. So being able to shut that down just flat out, and Night Stretcher and Superior Energy Retrieval, it is really cool. Again, we don't talk about the deck list, as Drew and I covered a lot in it, but if you have 4 Iron Thorns EX laying around, this is something to obviously either take to a challenge or a cup. I have faith in it. We'll go into my answer here a little bit later, but I still think that this is good right now. I would not be very happy to see Gardevoir sitting across from me, especially with the double monkey. If they played more of the Kato's list, that would terrify the death of me. And I feel with you when you're playing Guardy, and if they ever get to a stage where there's 3 Kirlia set up, you're just never gonna win.
They just cruise from that point.
Yep, you're coping if you hope to win, versus that, because that's basically was always my thing, is if I can somehow only allow them to have 1 Curly in play, or they have to like evolve to get more draw, and then if they ever evolve from a Curly to Guard EX, I'm like, okay, they're not seeing 6 to 8 cards type of thing, depending on what they have. So cool result. There was only 318 players. So again, there's no stream. I didn't get to watch it. It's just we're looking at this. I do see a certain bird, double birds that I should say. I don't know if you listened to much of the other podcasts out there this past week, Michael, but Lugia was like, Lugia is a great play right now. Why is no one playing Lugia? No one's playing any Lugia techs, and when no one plays a Lugia text, Lugia does well. And so Rahul did go back to his Lugia. Is it his Lugia list?
Yeah, it's his list. Yep.
It is. Faithful. It still is his list. Yep. The Old Faithful. So why not, right? He's won like thousands of dollars over the past 4 months. August would be 4 months. And just
interesting. It looks like he's had a little tweak to this list from his Worlds one, because it's only 11th place from Perth. So
Oh yeah.
He borrowed this from Brandon, so I wonder what's changed.
Well, he was never playing the Wellspring Mass, was he?
I don't think so.
Because it's only the 1/1 Cincino Mencino. 4 boss, 3 research. That seems normal. 1 shock, 2 Iono.
Let's take a look because he was running this worlds list for the longest time.
Yeah. I do not see.
Yeah, the Wellspring was not in this
I don't
list.
see that.
So makes sense. I don't know where the difference is behind that, but yeah. Still.
So we'll see. Again, I know Toronto will be interesting. I still think it all depends, I guess, what groups play, right?
Right.
Is if a group of 6 to 7 people get in and Lugia, because to me, Lugia still is always terrifying to play, especially if they have a good setup that turn 1 to turn 2.
Yep.
And as Lugia seems to have, when people forget about it, it comes back. Sort of like a Gardevoir a little bit, where people like, Gardevoir's not something here, and then it was a great meta call. Drew and I talked about the carousel that is the meta right now because it is so wide. There's so many decks out there. It just kind of continues to rotate around and around, and you just never know what comes. So fun to see. Again, it would be awesome to go to a regional in Australia. I don't know if that would ever be in my future in the next few years, but man, talk about a cool vacation and a great place to have a regional at.
Yeah, seriously.
And then we will shift over. So in Colombia, we had the Bogota special event. Not as much coverage out here, but we do see a Regidrago getting a dub. I won't do any celebratory drinks or anything like that. If anything, I'm trying to slow that down here before the baby comes, because then I won't be having very much to partake at all. But I'll just say official dubs, I guess, in the regional, get some hardware. Although Francisco, that when 11-1-1 does have his Worlds invite, because that was the cool thing that they did, was SPE winners get a direct route to Worlds. So here is a little bit different meta. So Regidrago features fairly predominantly. We still don't have all the lists from the top 16 is what I'll say. But we do have Regidrago fishing first and third. The only really top cut deck list that we have is from Owen Dahlgaard, which is from the States. And basically he's playing the normal way of Regidrago. This is what I think Tord played when he played in Germany, if I recall, because it's only his only recovery cards are the 2 super rods.
Yeah.
But also the Aloran Executor. So that seems to be landing more and more into these lists, and they're cutting the 1 Pult to go through. And the Haxorus is in there. I was just double checking if that was a Haxorus or if that was a Noivern, which I would never see Tord playing a Noivern in his Regidrago, but something there. I'm happy for it to win, but I guess the bigger call out, because we don't have as many lists to cover, is a certain Roaring Moon EX is making appearance, at least down in Colombia did, which I think, as we saw with Miraidon winning, I don't know about you, but it kind of seems like, well, if there's kind of big Pokemon on the way, might as well just try to get the first of those 2 prizes, right? So Roaring Moon taking the first 2 prizes, can use it with its attack.
And I'd imagine it's probably something similar to this version of it, like just, adding in the Koraidon for extra attack. Yeah, I mean, interesting.
I do think Roaring Moon. I was joking earlier because obviously I was playing a deck with 4 Sadas for the Gouging Fire, and to me it just, that entire engine, just, if you're relying on Sada's Vitality for like your way to win, essentially, because it does the combo pieces, I just don't find it legit. But the Roaring Moon EX, which is a little bit different than the Ancient Box, they play the normally the 4 of Dark Patch, so that is where you're not over relying on Sada. So we did see that. We saw Dragapult Dusknoir, which we haven't talked about in quite some time. Can't look at the deck list, so no idea of that. We did see a Charizard go through, and then obviously we saw a Lugia V-Star get to top 8. And then another Dragapult EX, and there were some peers that they just bubbled out and finished in 9th place. Didn't see a lot of Golden Go. That seemed to be kind of the flavor of the week a little bit, minus the, probably a runner-up to your Klawf. So we'll see. The Golden Go still feels really good, man. If you get a double Buddy Poffin, just seen so many cards, and that's obviously a lot of the guys played that last Friday, and it just Gouging Fire didn't play an Iono, so it was you're just looking at an 18 card hand. It's like, well, I'm always gonna lose this unless again I can get the price trade off because Gouging Fire hits for weakness. But
Right.
I did throw in you just talked about the Crydon because that would stipulate. So I was like, well, that's good in case there's a fighting weak Pokemon, which Vezendipity is. And I threw in the Latias EX because I was like, why have a switch cart when you can just do this? But then I realized you just don't have a lot of bench space in Gouging Fire. Yeah. So cool to see. There's not much there. Hopefully we'll get more throughout the rest of this week just to kind of look because, again, players were playing, so you always kind of want to look if there's any wacky deck list out there, but we still don't even know a lot of the results from the special event. But that covers our 2 past majors is what I'll say that we had. And I wanted to, I guess, any closing thoughts of just where you think the meta's at, because we will touch on it in Toronto here later in the episode.
To be honest, not really, other than the fact that it just is, like you already call out to, like, it's so hard to predict because it's constantly evolving and constantly changing in this format that we're in, which is good compared to this time last year. Everything just felt really stagnant. Like, I was really concerned with this meta going into it, that it would be the same, given that we have so much time between sets now. But it does seem a lot different, seeing as there's so many potentially relevant decks in the meta. Like, again, the fact that Klawf is meta relevant right now is everything you need to know about this meta.
Yeah,
it's wild. It is absolutely wild.
And quite a few different A specs. It's not just consumed by only Prime Catcher,
which is great.
You're seeing the trolley, you're seeing the Energy Search Pro in Golden Go, which is a handmade.
Yeah,
and you're seeing the unfair stamp that we just talked about in Gardevoir when down in Australia, and then Secret Box that we've talked about as well too. So it seems like the cream is rising to the top in terms of A specs. Yeah. So it is fun, and I would agree with you. It kind of is medical now, but I don't know, man. Like, so many decks from 11 to 10% to 9% to 8%. Like,
yeah,
I honestly think, and I heard it on. What did I just talk about? Oh, I was listening to Spill the TCG podcast, which is like an all Europe base. So it's Alex Dow, Omnipoke, Joe Bernard, and then what's his name? It's not Mike Ellis. It is Benjamin. I can't remember his last name now. But I was listening to theirs, and Joe played Miraidon, and he said out of his whatever it was, because they only had 8, so it'd be 8 and 4. Yeah, 8 and 4 out of his 12 rounds, he hit 12 different archetypes. So that's where I think there is such thing as meta calls, but I still think it comes down to play deck in and out, and you're probably just going to see very random things throughout your 8 rounds in day 1 or 9 rounds, depending on the number. But well, with that, I did want to circle back because I don't know. I hope to record next week, possibly the next 2 weeks. We'll see. It gets a little bit tight, and we might not have a Christmas week. Just obviously, I want to respect your family time and Drew's time, and then obviously, who knows what state my family be in. So we might have probably the first week off in quite some time.
Yeah.
I would say probably all the way back to the 4th of July. Drew released a 90-second clip of just I'm on vacation. So. I did want to cover our top 5 favorite decks, not necessarily the best decks, but just our top 5 favorite decks that we played this year, which would include some decks that were a part of, obviously, pre-rotation in the spring. So I'll let you start off. If you want to go 5 to 1 or 1 to 5, however 5 to 1.
Perfect. Yeah, let's do 5 to 1, and we'll just go back and forth. So I'll do my 5th, you do your 5th, and we'll go from there. How's that sound?
I love it.
Cool.
I'll let you lead off, sir.
Yeah, for me, this is one I didn't get to play a ton of. I played a lot of it when it first came out last year when I was pretty new, last year, 2023. My mind's already thinking 2025.
Yeah.
And then I picked it back up midway through this year. I don't remember when exactly, but Chien-Pao for me, I think it really kind of was that pivot for me to be a better player when I realized all right, I want to learn sequencing. I want to learn how to pilot a deck well and not just rely on luck or whatever it might be. and in turn maybe better player even with Lugia too, and just helping me to think about lines differently. So Jim Bao, it wasn't one that I ran a ton of, like I said, but it kind of like invigorated in me a new sense of like appreciation for sequencing and things like that too. So that would be where I think my fifth favorite deck of the year. How about you?
Yeah, Chimbao's. I would agree. The sequencing puzzle that you have to do with that deck will just make you a better player, no matter what. I rest in peace because I loved Barrel, that as a draw engine, and
Yeah.
it is nowhere to be found whatsoever anymore. But my fifth deck, I had to think here for a little bit. Miraidon was probably an honorable mention for mine. The Miraidon with Fluffy,
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
because Raichu is one of my favorite Pokemon. I was able to pre-order and get the Alolan Raichu like Funko Pop, so I have that as well too.
Nice.
But I did like that because you were able to string together Raichu V, whereas now it's like it's your one big button blow up. So honorable mention to that. But my fifth is the Rapid Strike, Inteleon, and Urshifu VMAX spread deck. So this one NAIC by Cyrus Davis. So this I got into too late into its lifetime. I probably started to play it right towards the tail end of 2023 and then early this year before rotation. The damage spread, obviously, this was kind of before Dragapult, obviously. So the damage spread of discarding water energy, it helped fuel things because you had Melanie to, of course, attach it and draw 3 cards. You use the Octillery line for the Rapid Strike Search to go look for any card that has Rapid Strike in its name. So that was really cool because it was Pokemon Search, Supporter Search, anything, right? Any energy because it would get you your Rapid Strike energy. I had a lot of fun playing this, and the Rapid Strike Urshifu V and V Max was just one of my kind of favorite cards. When I first got into this scene trying to learn, when Tord, rest in peace, for his streams. Tord's still alive, everyone. He's not dead. I'm just saying his streams. His streams. I think I that came out wrong, but his streams. Rest in peace. I used to watch him play his Rapid Strike Urshifu deck with like so many one ofs. Just talking about Klawf, because he played the Inteleon, search line. Obviously, is where I went through, and I was just memorized. I'd rewatched his VODs over and over again, just watching him play in his lines. So rest in peace to Rapid Striker Inteleon VMAX and Urshifu VMAX. That was one of my favorites. So had a lot of fun with that. I do miss that.
We should have done our most hated list or decks of 2024 as well, because that was on my list.
Hey, that's content. That's content. Next, that's content for next week, man.
You heard it here first. We'll do it next week.
Toronto, after Toronto, unless there was quite a bit of news, but we'll wait till speculation turns into actual announcements. But that hint that might be on next week's episode.
Mine will just be Gardevoir in all 5 sections, and then honorable mentions Rapid Strike. I'm just kidding.
Strike until yeah.
No, going to number 4, Ancient Box for me. I had a ton of fun with this deck. I didn't adopt it as early on as some people did. What is it? I can't remember the guy's name. Jake, I think is who it was, who really like started kind of like
he got to the finals and lost to Zarb because he just he prized like 3 ancient or like 2 of his ancient cards would have made him hit 2 or 330.
Yeah, Jake Ewart, I think is what his I can't remember the last name.
Bingo. Anyways, no, that's his exact. It's like EW something.
Yeah. I've had a ton of fun with it, and it's just it's a very, to me, it feels like a pretty unique deck. I love that it's all single prizers. I know I tried to run the list. I can't remember what tournament it was. Maybe it was Baltimore even, or maybe Worlds, where it added in the 2 prizers. But at the end of the day, I just really loved the single prize attacker of it too. And again, this was one where sequencing really felt really fun in the deck, making sure you can pitch what you need to pitch and see those numbers and hit the numbers. And yeah, it's a really cool deck. So I would put that on my 4th favorite of the year. But
nice. I had anything with Dialga V-Star is basically the answer here. So Dialga V-Star before rotation, Dialga V-Star after rotation with Metang, obviously with the Mental Maker. But basically being able to do your Star Kronos attack for 220 and then you get to take a whole other turn. Man, it's so much fun. This is the deck that I played NAIC. I didn't figure out that Cornerstone, not Cornerstone, but the Teal Mask Ogrepon EX with the 4 energy switch.
Yeah.
I just didn't get quite there into a bunch of deck building with Drew. Um, for that, we were trying to play the Turbo Energize and everything. But so I landed on Dialga, and that has always been a lot of fun. I did like the Metang feature. And then obviously now I'm still trying to figure out the Arch Alanon. I only got like 5 or 6 games into it, so I'm still trying to figure that out. I've watched Azul's video with the scramble switch, but I see a lot of Japan also like to use this scoop up Cyclone.
Yeah.
Right? Is that the ace spec? Yeah, where you can pick it up and everything returns to hand. And then obviously Daichi Shimada played that at the Japan Elite Four tournament. So I think he got to the semis with it. So anything Dialga, I've always liked just because it doesn't have an ability, so you could play it within path as well too, because it's just an attack. But damage ramp up, and then obviously the Star Chronos was just probably my second, probably my second V Star, attack / or ability. It's edged out Arceus V Star now, just because I probably played a little bit more Dialga than Arceus possibly. So.
Well, it makes sense. You being a Rapid Strike fan, it's basically Yoga Loop on steroids.
Oh yeah. And Yoga Loop, I didn't even shout that out, but yeah, Yoga Loop just it's fun being able to have different things where it's just not. I'm not a very much of a like beat stick.
Yeah.
Only one way to victory type of thing. I like being able to have options. Just probably makes me play a little bit worse sometimes because I overanalyze. But I just like having multiple ways to win a match or a game. So what goes to 3 for you?
Number 3 is a toss up between 3 and 2. I think I could flip flop it. But I decided to put Charizard Pidgeot in that space. And kind of like what you've been saying, like all variants of it. I've really enjoyed playing this list. Played a ton of Charizard. Charizard, again, as cliche as it is, Charizard's one of my favorite Pokemon as being a Gen 1er. But just in general, it's a really cool deck, really strong deck, super powerful. And as we've seen it evolve throughout the meta, or throughout the different sets and the meta shifts, it's just been one that's just been a consistent one that I could go back to. Have some solid cup runs with it, some solid challenge finishes, things like that. So I'd put it at number 3. Again, it could be number 2, but as we'll see soon, number 2 I think has a slight edge for me over Charizard Pidgeot.
Yeah. Number 3 for me, I put down Giratina V-Star, featuring with the Lost Zone. I played a lot of this in the end of 2023 and early 2024. The Zard and Guardian matchups that I just had some memorable battles with those. The matchup felt so tight, and it was always back and forth because you're disrupting late with Roxanne, they're disrupting early with Iono, and I just put in a massive RIP, a lot of RIPs in this episode for us, but RIP to Path and the Peak. I loved that stadium so much. And I was talking with Drew last week too. It's just like, it seems like something is there for Giratina's last run here before rotation with counter gain, because you can do 280 with just a grass and a psychic. Granted, now you have to discard both the grass and psychic, but I was just thinking of ways with given its attacks that are on there. I was just thinking of ways to, like I said, I think counter gain is one of those stunk up as much as early, because I think it's going to be really good after rotation or just feature a lot more heavily. But I loved it, man. The Roxanne Path combo, right? Or excuse me,
good.
Path then Roxanne. That combo, getting 6 cards in to kind of piece together those last things. Mirage Gate is just one of those cards, for all of time for Lost Zone Engines. So good. I just had a lot of fun with that deck. And that's about all I can say is just, you got a big dragon hitting very big numbers, and the second ability to say, hey, you're just deleted off the board if I have 10 cards on the Lost Zone's cool. Then you have a little bit of stabilize damage to clean up anything. Obviously you could attack with Radiant Greninja as well too, so just a lot of options. But it was, like I said, it was a lot of fun because if they took they swept up your Giratina V early, and if you already had one to play, you're like, okay, I'm just gonna set you to 2 later. And this was so good because there's no Festivity EX. I think that card, even though it's I played in all my decks as you have to, but I'm not enjoying that card right now. Why disrupt? Because it just feels like they're always going to have it with that card. But I digress. What's number 2 for you?
Number 2 for me is Lost Tina, actually.
Ah,
Yep. I played it to my first ever regional. I played it to Charlotte at the beginning of this year, right? Man, this year's been a blur. Yeah, January of
yeah,
this year. I played it to Charlotte. It really, I mean, it just had so many good matchups. It was so versatile to be able to potentially pop off turn 1 going second with a Cramorant, to have the Sableye damage, to have Giratina just being pretty broken, to be able to, one of the reasons I loved it so much is because early on I hated Snorlax and I hated
ah,
Mimikyu, and you used to just be able to shred right through it. And
oh yeah,
I remember I faced Blocklax round 2 at Charlotte, and I just was able to do work to it. So just one of those decks where it's just really special. Again, I grew a lot in my abilities playing with it, just being the Lost Zone engine, making those micro decisions, each and every decision you do. So it just makes you a good player, and it was a fun deck to play. One of the other reasons why I hate Rapid Strike is because it had a pretty bad Rapid Strike matchup. I had a really solid run running until I hit a Rapid Strike in Charlotte, and then it just kind of all fizzled out after that. So a little bit of history there with me, Lost Tina versus Rapid Strike. But other than that, it was a blast. Like, you had a lot of really memorable, close back and forth games with Charizard. And yeah, Guardy as well, I guess you could say.
yeah, yeah.
But no, just a great deck. I wish that it was still around. I know there's a guy on Twitter, Brandon, who absolutely loves Lost Tina and tries to bring it up every time he can as well. So it's one of those decks where it'll always have a special place. I even bought 4 gold Path to the Peaks to bling it out for Charlotte, even knowing that rotation was coming.
Oh, sick. Yeah,
Wasn't my best
that's a
decision, especially knowing where the price is at now.
yeah,
But still a great card, great deck. Roxanne Path for the win. GG, shake my
yeah,
hand.
yeah. Very, very, very good. That'll lead me to my second, which I put in Sablezard. So there was probably a moment as when the Lost Origin set came out and the Lost Engine, if you will, kind of first came out. I was really gun shy into it because it, as you said, those micro decisions. I just probably finally, as I went, and I recall when Table Mon Pablo Meza's when he played the amazing deck with the Raikou and the Rayquaza that you could blow up anything with Rayquaza and stuff. That's probably when I kind of dived headfirst into the Lost Zone engine, and I think it just made me a better player, which is why my win rate with Giratina was so high, just because I had those reps. But Sablezard was my answer here. Uh, have not even thought about this ever since Kieran was released, because there's just no
No.
chance, and there's just too much damage spread. You're so far behind, but specifically, I even liked it before Kieran came out and was released. So it was so easy to counter just a bunch of 2 price attacking decks is what I had in my notes. You'd have to play double Manaphy now, but and even back then you had I liked it because you had so much deck space because you didn't have to commit 4 Mirage Gate. You maybe had 1, possibly 2 at the tops. You were playing a Raihan to go through, but then when we started to get the tools and Paradox Rift and Temporal Forces, the de-evolution and to get poke with the cram, do some Sableye, and so what if you're down? Because once you do that, it's like boom, 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 and you have no more rare candies in your in your deck. That's what I loved, is punishing players that played all the rare candies. You just sign the slip, buddy, because it's game over when I get this
Yep.
de-evolution out. And then like the 280, to hit with Cram Light, you don't have to have any energy to it. So I just like that. It felt good because you're able to take, kind of just piece together things. Counter catch would really take off. But like I said, I would kind of went through like a really hot phase of that. Pre and post NEIC, but then like I said, once Kyurem came out, it was game over. You just never. I don't think I'll ever play that. Excuse me. I don't think I'll ever play that ever again. Till maybe I will, like one last time, but I just feel like no
Right.
matter what I queue up into live, I'm gonna see something with Kyurem or damage spread or something like that as well too. Dragapult feels like impossible now. 320 damage, are you kidding me? And normally they evolve up via the Dracoloak line now, so
Right.
seems polarizing. But I think everyone listening to this that has listened before knows what our number one answers are. But
Yep.
obviously, I'm guessing Lugia finished number one for you.
Lugia indeed finished number one for me, and will always be, I think, probably my favorite deck. I love that deck. So much fun.
Yeah.
I don't need to
And
say anything else about it. In stop right there.
you have to say Regidrago. Everyone go back and listen back to when I took over the pod in March. There's plenty of Regidrago content and maybe a little bit more. So I know we're running a little bit longer here, but basically what I said for Toronto, I don't think it's a little bit different now. I don't think you can really say like let's try to figure out the meta. I still feel like here's a question. What do you think the top percentages? You don't have to give me the deck, but what do you honestly think the number one percentage deck is? Like, is it a 12%, 13%? We haven't really seen anything over 15 for a little bit.
That's a good question. Because the numbers are going to be higher than what we saw in Perth. So
a lot more players in Toronto. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So we can't really like, I don't statistically, I don't think I can confidently use what we saw in Perth for Toronto. I don't know. I'd say maybe 12 at most. I don't think we see anything above that, but I don't know. I don't know. That's a tough one. I want to say 12.
My number landed on like 13. I think it can get to just 13. I don't think it's going to get to anywhere near above that, but I say that now, and then we'll look at it Saturday morning, and it'll be like
18%,
11.5. Yeah, or that. Yeah, that'd be wild. But I was thinking like it'd be like 11.5, 11.2, 11.1, 10.7 is what I kind of see on that first page. But so that was a question that I had, and then I would say is what would you be sleeving up if? And I'll put this caveat on there if you were obviously gearing up and we're doing prep and all that sort of stuff. You're playing a lot more than what you've been able to lately. Is what would you gear up if you had the reps in?
I think I'd still put out Charizard. Charizard feels really strong. I think Klawf is fake, even though it's doing really well. I just it seems so memey to me. So I wouldn't really be as concerned about Klawf going into it. I would just play Charizard and trust its consistency and trust its power. And this would specifically be the Charizard Pidgeot with Dusknoir as well. An unfair stamp. I think that goes to because there's some variants out there that I've seen. So tried and true. I wouldn't throw the Regieleki in there. I know I've seen some of those popping back up here and there again, but it would just be the pretty standard.
Control Zard. Yeah, I think standard is. I get it, but I don't really know if that really pushes you over. Into doing that well.
It may not win, but just in general, I would never play Guardy to an event. So yeah, Charizard would be my pick.
Sure. My pick again. Everyone probably would be shocked that I'm not saying Regidrago, but like I said, it's kind of one of those things where it's a little bit the hunted right now, and I suppose it depends on some of those matchups. But as we kind of saw, as people. Regidrago's turning out top 8s and top 4s before it's kind of started to have its dubs, and that was only like around like 8%. So sometimes when it slept on, it kind of comes back just like a Lugia. But to me right now, what I would be playing would be Ancient Box. Seems very tempting right now. Depending if I had the reps, that still feels fairly good just into a wide meta. You hit quite a few decent things. And I do like it. I would play the one Roaring Moon EX, the big one, to be able to delete something. Obviously, you kind of have to play the Petrant to help. But and then probably the silver medal goes to Thorn Dragapult. I only got like 6 games on that with live, but I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, especially that Trolley Evo combo is really cool. Going second is all I'm gonna say. It's a lot of fun. So. We'll see what happens. Have you ever been to Toronto? Yeah, no. I've never been to New York, but like New York in the winter sounds cool. I know probably the Canadians are like Toronto in the winter. Are you kidding me? But That would be something I would love to do.
Yeah.
Probably a few years from now when kids are a lot older. But it's like try to go to either like Toronto or Vancouver, just because I've never been to Canada. But that would be a lot of fun to attend a regional. I think both of those cities seems like a good city to go visit a regional for.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, that covers the meat and potatoes, our PCS updates. Congratulations, Nick. Talk about beginner's luck. Joins, and then the first Patreon bi-monthly giveaway we have. He has one ticket into my big old wheel of names here, and he won the Espeon V10 and then a Chenpao EX and Rhydon EX. And we'll have a live reveal here. Let me get my wheel up on the background here. So I have a Umbreon V10, still sealed. And then we have a Golden Go EX and Noivern EX to throw in there. I'm going to click my big wheel of names here. Take a screenshot for the Discord too, so don't get ass. And it looks like Jeremy is our winner. I will take a screenshot of that. So well done. I will get those out in the mail this week, probably towards the later of the week, because I'll get both things done. So again, we don't ask for much for our PCS Patreon. Basically, kind of whatever goes in there, I try to get cool things like this, and I was able to talk about some sealed product right now, man. It's kind of booming. I was able to get these on a decent deal. It's like I'm not paying crazy rates for a few packs. So, and then I will have the team challenge. I know Steven and Andy were playing tonight, but we finally did have the first 2 weeks, everyone tied. So that, I was like, are you kidding me? We're going to have a tied, going in. But thankfully, I will say that Jeremy and Carlos won with Golden Go. So they're at 5 points. Right now, the next highest is 3 points. But again, I am waiting on one other because there's two teams at 2 points, but that should shift hopefully tonight. We'll see on the results, but it's been a lot of fun. They have 2 more weeks left here of their, set. And then obviously the top 2 teams will go into a top cut. So I enjoyed that. I was like I said, and we're going to try maybe this Friday night. We'll see. I'm going to try to do the same hangout session. So if you're in the Discord and have Friday night available, feel free to hang out. Again, it's not a super competitive thing. You can use it as competitive rest. I just used it as wanting to hang out with the homies type of the stuff and play some Pokemon. It's a lot more fun doing it with others. So thank you for listening. That should cover our show. Thank you to everyone that listens. Please leave a like, review on either YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because there's so many different platforms out there. If you just search PCS podcasts out there in the webs, we're fairly well matched, but specifically on Twitter, or X, I should call it, is PCS_pod. And then everything else, patreon.com/PCS podcast, youtube.com @the PCS podcast. And you should be able to find everything. I know Drew is working to get some Twitch going. Obviously, he had some events happen, but I know he has his own handle, but he'll be talking about the PCS as well, too. So Drew and I are going to try to do a Conquest challenge, but we wanted to do webcam, but I think we're going to have to do just lives in terms of timing. Michael, anything else left to add for the episode? If not, where can the people find more of you?
Yep, you can find me at mheradia_PTCG on Twitter. Not Blue Sky, because I don't have that. So Twitter.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening. We hope you have a good rest of your week, and we'll catch you on the flip flop.
See ya. Oh, look, balloons. Did you see that?
No.
Look, let's see if it does it again. And then pass. Oh no, it doesn't. Well, it'll be on recording because that was funny. I'm gonna keep that on cool. There.
All right, yeah, keep that in.